Welcome to HFY Galaxy Tales. Like this video and subscribe the channel for more HFY stories. Listen, I need you to understand something right from the start. Humans are insane. Not the fun kind of insane where you accidentally eat fermented fruit and wake up 3 systems away. No. The terrifying kind. The kind that makes you question every decision your species ever made about exploring the galaxy. My name is Vex. Just Vex. I used to have a longer designation, something with numbers and honorifics that took 17 syllables to pronounce properly, but after what happened on Station Helix. Yeah. Just Vex works fine now. I was head of security on that floating disaster waiting to happen. 17 species living in questionable harmony, trading goods, sharing technology, pretending we all liked each other. The usual galactic peacekeeping nonsense. My job was simple: keep the weapons locked down, keep the peace, keep my 4 eyes on everything. Then Webb showed up. Now, you have to picture this guy, right? Human male, about 1.8 meters tall, which is average for them but still weirdly lanky for most civilized species. Brown hair that stuck up in the back like he had just rolled out of a sleep pod. Green eyes that seemed friendly enough. Wore these strange blue trousers they call jeans and a black shirt with some faded logo I could not read. Carried a single duffel bag over his shoulder. He walked through customs with this lazy smile on his face, like he was on vacation. My security scanners lit up like a supernova during mating season. 43 weapons. 43 weapons. Concealed in that single bag were plasma rifles, chemical projectile launchers they call guns, electromagnetic pulse grenades, something called a shotgun that looked like it could punch a hole through a bulkhead, tactical knives, and this weird curved blade he claimed was a family heirloom. A family heirloom. Who passes down murder tools through generations? Oh. And get this. When I asked him about it, you know what this lunatic said? He shrugged. Actually shrugged his shoulders in that uniquely human way and said, "What? I like to be prepared." Prepared. For what? An invasion? A war? The heat death of the universe? Mr. Webb, I said, trying to keep my voice steady while my translator implant worked overtime, Station Helix is a demilitarized zone. No weapons allowed. Period. End of discussion. We have laws here. He looked genuinely surprised. Surprised. Like he had never heard of such a concept. None at all, he asked, scratching his head. Not even for self-defense. None. At all, I repeated slowly, wondering if maybe humans had trouble with basic comprehension. You can collect these when you leave. Until then, they go in the vault. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Not anger exactly. More like curiosity. Calculation. I could not quite read it. Then that easy smile returned. Sure thing, officer. No problem. When in Rome, right? I had no idea what Rome was. Still do not. Probably another human death world. My security team confiscated every single weapon. Logged them. Sealed them in magnetically locked containers. Put them in Vault 7, which had 8 redundant security systems and walls made of compressed titanium alloy. Nothing short of a tactical nuclear device could breach it. Webb walked onto my station completely unarmed. I thought my job was done. I thought wrong. The first week was quiet. Too quiet, if I am being honest. Webb rented a small quarters in the human sector, spent his days wandering the markets, eating at different food stalls, chatting with vendors. He seemed fascinated by everything. Asked questions constantly. Where did this come from? How does that work? What is this made of? I kept surveillance on him, obviously. Standard procedure for anyone who shows up with enough firepower to start a small war. But he was boring. Painfully boring. He bought fruit. He bought data tablets. He bought clothing. He visited the observation deck and stared at the stars for hours. On day 9, the Krellian trade delegation arrived. Now, Krellians are. How do I put this diplomatically? They are garbage. Absolute garbage. They make their profit through intimidation, extortion, and barely legal contracts that trap smaller species in debt for generations. They are technically allowed in most stations because they have not quite crossed the line into outright piracy. Technically. Their leader, a bloated specimen named Gordhak, had been causing problems since the moment he slithered off his transport. Harassing vendors. Demanding discounts. Making threats thinly veiled as business propositions. On day 10, he made the mistake of threatening Marcus Webb. I watched it happen on the security feeds. Webb was at a noodle stand, run by a sweet old Tiverian named Pip. Gordhak and 3 of his enforcers rolled up, literally rolled because Krellians have that weird undulating movement, and demanded Pip pay protection fees. Pip tried to explain he already paid station fees for security. That was my job, after all. Gordhak laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together underwater. Station security? You mean that four-eyed fool Vex? He could not protect a storage crate from rust. You pay us, or accidents happen. Messy accidents. Webb, who had been quietly eating his noodles, set down his chopsticks. I zoomed in the camera because something about his posture had changed. That relaxed vacation vibe was gone. His spine was straight. His hands were steady. Hey, Webb said, his voice calm and almost friendly, maybe you should leave Pip alone. Gordhak's entire mass swiveled toward him. Maybe you should mind your business, human, before you become an accident yourself. Webb stood up slowly. He was not even armed with eating utensils at that point. Just standing there in his jeans and faded shirt, looking utterly unprepared for a confrontation with 4 Krellian thugs who each outweighed him by at least 50 kilos. Here is the thing, Webb said, still in that conversational tone, I really like Pip's noodles. Best I have had in 3 sectors. And I would hate for anything to happen to this stand. Or to Pip. So why don't you gentlemen move along before this gets awkward? I actually laughed watching this. Laughed. This unarmed human was trying to intimidate Krellian enforcers. I almost called it in, almost sent a security team. But I was curious. What was his plan? Was he going to fight? Run? Beg? Gordhak made a sound that might have been laughter. Brave words for a monkey without claws. Tell you what, human. Apologize, lick my feeding tentacle, and maybe I let you leave with all your bones intact. Marcus Webb smiled. Actually smiled. That is a generous offer, he said, reaching into his pocket. Every Krellian tensed. I tensed. What did he have? Had he smuggled something past security? Impossible. We scanned everything. He pulled out a pen. A pen. Not even a fancy pen. Just a standard plastic writing instrument, probably cost him half a credit at some market stall. He held it casually between his fingers, like he was about to sign a document. But I think I will pass, Webb continued, that smile never wavering. Gordhak lurched forward, one massive arm swinging toward Webb's head. It should have connected. Should have sent the human flying across the corridor. Should have ended this pathetic display. Webb moved. I have watched the footage exactly 217 times since then, and I still cannot fully process what I saw. He ducked under the swing, stepped inside Gordhak's guard, and jabbed that pen into a pressure point just below the Krellian's vocal sac. Gordhak made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull and collapsed. 1 down. 3 to go. The enforcers rushed him simultaneously, which was their first mistake. Their second mistake was thinking an unarmed human was helpless. Their third mistake was existing in the same universe as Marcus Webb. He used that pen like a surgical instrument. Jab to the nerve cluster. Strike to the joint. Pressure point. Nerve bundle. Soft tissue. He was not fighting, not really. He was disabling them with the same casual efficiency you might use to turn off malfunctioning equipment. 17 seconds. That is how long it took him to drop 4 Krellian enforcers using nothing but a cheap plastic pen and what I can only assume was a terrifying amount of anatomical knowledge. When it was over, he calmly walked back to his noodles, sat down, and resumed eating. The pen never even broke. Pip was staring at him with all 6 eyes wide. That was delicious, Webb said, slurping noodles. You really should add more of those spicy pods though. The red ones? Those are fantastic. I sat in my security office, all 4 of my eyes fixed on the monitor, my mandibles hanging open in shock. What in the name of the Galactic Council had I just witnessed? I sent a team to collect the unconscious Krellians and detain them for assault. I also flagged Marcus Webb's file with about 9 new warnings. Not that it mattered. You cannot arrest someone for self-defense. And technically, he had not violated any weapons regulations. A pen is not a weapon. It is a writing instrument. But the way he used it, that was absolutely a weapon. Over the next few days, I watched Webb more carefully. Really watched him. The way he moved through crowds, always aware of exits. The way his eyes tracked potential threats. The way he positioned himself in any room to have maximum tactical advantage. This was not some random tourist. This was someone with training. Serious training. I pulled his file again. Marcus Webb, former military, Earth Coalition Forces. Served 12 years. Honorable discharge. Specialty listed as logistics and supply chain management. Logistics. They had him filed under logistics. Humans lie on their official documents. I made a note of that for future reference. 2 weeks after the pen incident, things escalated. A ship docked at Station Helix. Not a merchant vessel or a passenger transport. This was a Hunter-class frigate, registered to a bounty syndicate operating out of the outer reaches. 12 crew members disembarked, all armed to the teeth with licensed weapons. They had proper documentation, proper permits, everything legal. Their target? A Severian political refugee named Kella who had been living quietly in the residential sector for 8 months. Apparently, there was a price on her head back in Severian space. Something about corporate espionage. The details were murky, probably because the people issuing the bounty had made them murky on purpose. Kella was a single mother. 2 kids. Working 3 jobs to afford station rent. She was not a criminal. She was a scapegoat. I tried to help. Really, I did. I filed injunctions. I contacted council mediators. I argued that bounty hunters needed to follow proper extradition procedures, not just grab people off civilized stations. The syndicate had better lawyers than I had legal authority. On day 17 of Marcus Webb's stay, the bounty hunters made their move. They cornered Kella in the market district, right in the middle of the afternoon crowd. 12 armored mercs with stun weapons and restraints. I was trying to get there with my security team when I got the call. Sir, you need to see this. The video feed showed Marcus Webb standing between Kella and the bounty hunters. No armor. No visible weapons. Just jeans, a gray shirt, and what looked like a completely unreasonable death wish. Step aside, human, the lead bounty hunter growled through his helmet speaker. This does not concern you. We have legal authorization to retrieve our target. Webb did not move. Did not even look intimidated. He just stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking almost bored. Legal authorization, he repeated slowly. That is interesting. Because I am pretty sure kidnapping a refugee violates about 17 different council statutes. But hey, what do I know? I am just a dumb human. Last warning, the bounty hunter said, raising his weapon. Webb pulled his hands out of his pockets. He was holding a pen in one hand. And in the other? A small metal tube that looked like it came from a broken atmospheric regulator. See, here is my problem, Webb said conversationally, like he was discussing the weather instead of facing down 12 armed mercenaries. I really hate bullies. Always have. And you guys? You are definitely bullies. You think a pen is going to stop us? One of the other hunters laughed. Webb tilted his head slightly. This? No, this is just a pen. But this, he held up the metal tube, this I made from parts one bought at the engineering supply store. Mixed in a little potassium nitrate from the agricultural section, some magnesium shavings from the recycling center, a heating element from a broken food warmer, and boom. Well, not boom exactly. More like WHOSH. He pressed something on the tube. A jet of superheated plasma shot out the end, white-hot and screaming. He had turned random station parts into a handheld plasma torch. No, not a torch. A plasma injector. The lead bounty hunter actually took a step back. That is not possible, he stammered. You could not have. We scanned everything you brought on board. Webb grinned. That same lazy, vacation smile. But his eyes? His eyes were cold calculation. You scanned what I brought, he agreed. Not what I built. Big difference. What happened next was chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. The bounty hunters opened fire with stun rounds. Webb moved like liquid death, using that plasma injector to superheat their armor, forcing them to retreat, to cover their faces, to break formation. And that pen? He still had that stupid pen. Used it to target pressure points when they got close, to jam weapons, to disable suit seals. He fought 12 armored bounty hunters with a pen and a homemade plasma torch, and he was winning. My security team arrived just in time to watch Webb disarm the last merc and pin him to the ground using nothing but leverage and that terrifying efficiency. Sorry I made a mess, Webb said to me as my officers secured the bounty hunters. He was barely breathing hard. But they were bothering my friend. Friend? He had known Kella for maybe 2 weeks. Humans form pack bonds faster than viral infections. I looked at the plasma injector in his hand. How did you make that? He shrugged. Again with the shrugging. Basic chemistry and physics. It is not complicated if you know what you are doing. Want me to show you? Could be useful for station maintenance. Cutting through jammed doors, welding repairs, that kind of thing. Mr. Webb, I said slowly, my translator barely keeping up with my racing thoughts, you turned civilian station components into a weapon that just disabled 12 professional bounty hunters. Technically, it is a tool, he corrected. A tool I use defensively. Also technically not a weapon per station regulations, since I built it from legal materials for legitimate purposes. I wanted to argue. Wanted to arrest him. Wanted to do something. But he was right. Every single component he used was legal to purchase. The knowledge to combine them? That was just in his head. You cannot confiscate someone's brain. Well, you can, but that seems extreme. I let him go. What else could I do? That night, I sat in my office, reviewing footage and incident reports, and I realized something that made my 3 hearts sink into my lower abdomen. Marcus Webb was not some random tourist. He was not just former military. He was a threat assessment nightmare. A walking, talking example of why you could never truly disarm a human. Because they did not need weapons. They could turn anything into a weapon. Knowledge was their weapon. Creativity was their weapon. Sheer stubborn refusal to be helpless was their weapon. I had taken his guns, thinking I had made my station safer. Instead, I had just challenged him to get creative. And humans? Humans are terrifyingly creative when challenged. This was only week 3 of his stay. He had a reservation for 6 months. I started drinking heavily that night. By heavily, I mean I consumed my entire emergency supply of fermented algae in one sitting. It did not help. Because I absolutely knew, things were about to get so much worse. And I was absolutely, horrifyingly correct. Week 4 started with what I thought would be a quiet morning. I was wrong. So incredibly, spectacularly wrong. The station's environmental alarms started screaming at 0600 hours. Oxygen levels dropping in Sector 9. Temperature fluctuations in the hydroponics bay. Pressure seals malfunctioning in 3 separate zones. Sabotage. Had to be. I scrambled my entire security team, pulled up diagnostics, tried to figure out what was happening. That is when I got the message. Anonymous. Routed through 17 proxy servers. Untraceable. Station Helix, you are harboring enemies of the Krellian Commerce Guild. Surrender the human Marcus Webb and the Severian Kella within 2 hours, or we begin depressurizing sections one by one. You have been warned. Oh, wonderful. Just fantastic. Gort Hack had friends. Rich friends with access to military-grade hacking equipment and a complete disregard for innocent lives. I immediately went to find Marcus Webb, because of course I did. This was his fault. All of this. If he had just minded his own business, let the bounty hunters take Kella, none of this would be happening. I found him in the station's tiny gym, doing pull-ups on a bar like the station was not actively being held hostage. Not even breathing hard. Just counting under his breath. 47, 48, 49. Mr. Webb. I shouted, my voice modulator cranked up to maximum volume. We have a situation. He dropped from the bar, grabbed a towel, and wiped his face. Morning, Vex. What kind of situation? The fun kind or the everyone might die kind? The everyone might die kind. I waved my data pad at him frantically. The Krellians are hacking our life support. They want you and Kella or they start venting atmosphere. He took a drink from a water container, completely calm. Completely infuriating. Okay, he said. So what is the play? The play? The play. There is no play. We give them what they want or 17,000 people suffocate. My voice was hitting frequencies my species should not be able to produce. Webb set down his water. His expression shifted. That vacation smile disappeared, replaced by something colder. Something that made my survival instincts scream. No, he said simply. No. No. That is your response. People are going to die. Not if I have anything to say about it. He grabbed his shirt, pulled it on. Where is the hacking coming from? We traced it to a ship in Docking Bay 12. Heavily shielded. We cannot board it without authorization, and they are claiming diplomatic immunity through some loophole in council regulations. Diplomatic immunity, Webb repeated, his tone dripping with contempt. Right. Because threatening to murder thousands of civilians is super diplomatic. He started walking toward the exit. I scrambled after him, all 4 legs working overtime to keep pace. What are you planning? I demanded. You cannot just storm a shielded ship. Even you are not that insane. He glanced back at me, and I swear on the Celestial Archives, he winked. Actually winked. Vex, buddy, you really need to stop underestimating humans. It is bad for your blood pressure. All 4 of your hearts are probably working overtime. We reached his quarters. He pulled out a storage container from under his sleeping platform. Inside was an alarming collection of random objects. Wiring. Batteries. Empty beverage containers. Cleaning supplies. Spices from the market. A broken communicator. Rubber tubing. And about 30 more pens. What is all this? I asked, though part of me really did not want to know. Insurance, he said, starting to sort through components with practiced efficiency. I have been working on a few projects in my spare time. You know, hobbies. Keeps the mind sharp. Hobbies. You call making weapons hobbies? Tools, he corrected absently, connecting wires to a battery pack. These are tools. I am a law-abiding visitor, remember? No weapons allowed. He worked fast. Terrifyingly fast. Within minutes, he had assembled 3 devices that looked like they belonged in a military arsenal, not a tourist's quarters. The first was another plasma injector, more refined than his earlier version. The second looked like some kind of electromagnetic pulse generator built from a communicator and what I swear were parts from a food heating unit. The third was a cylinder covered in duct tape with wires sticking out at odd angles. Is that a bomb? I asked, my voice jumping 2 octaves. Of course not, Webb said, sounding offended. Bombs are illegal. This is a compressed gas surprise delivery system. Completely different thing. That is a bomb. It is a non-lethal incapacitation device using rapid atmospheric displacement and sensory overload. Also known as a flashbang. Very useful for breaching operations. Totally legal if you phrase it right. I was going to have a cardiac event. All 4 hearts were going to give out simultaneously. You cannot do this, I said, trying to sound authoritative despite my rising panic. I am head of security. I will handle negotiations. With what leverage? Webb asked, slipping the devices into a bag. They are in a shielded ship with diplomatic protection. They have control of your life support. And in about 90 minutes, people start dying. You need someone who does not play by the rules. But you could die. He paused, looked at me with those disturbingly calm human eyes. Yeah. I could. But Kella has 2 kids. Pip makes amazing noodles. You have been decent to me despite obviously wanting to throw me in a cell. And there are 17,000 people on this station who did not ask to be part of this mess. So yeah, I am going. Humans. Irrational, self-sacrificing, absolutely deranged humans. Fine, I heard myself say, which was insane because I definitely did not authorize my mouth to form those words. But I am coming with you. Bad idea, Webb said. Terrible idea, I agreed. Absolutely the worst idea I have ever had. But you are going to need someone with security clearance to get you close to that ship. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right. But stay behind me, and when things get loud, and they will get loud, you hit the deck. Understand? I understood that I was probably going to die. But what choice did I have? We made our way to docking bay 12. I used my credentials to override the proximity warnings. The Krellian ship was massive, dark metal, bristling with sensor arrays. The boarding ramp was sealed tight. How do we get in? I whispered. Webb pulled out a small cutting tool. Not a military-grade plasma cutter. Just a maintenance laser he had obviously modified. Maintenance hatch on the underside. Every ship has them. Usually poorly secured because who expects an attack from underneath? Of course he knew that. Of course. We crawled under the ship. Sure enough, there was a maintenance hatch. Webb made short work of the lock, and we slipped inside. The interior was dark, cramped, smelled like recycled air and Krellian musk glands. We could hear voices deeper in the ship. At least 6, maybe more. Webb moved like a shadow. I tried to move quietly, but 4 legs on metal grating is not exactly subtle. He kept signaling me to stay close, stay low. We reached the cargo bay. 3 Krellians working on computer terminals, monitoring the life support hack. They had not noticed us yet. Webb set down his bag carefully. Pulled out the flashbang. Held up 3 fingers. Then 2. Then 1. He threw it. The explosion of light and sound was apocalyptic. I had served in security for 20 cycles and never experienced anything like it. The Krellians shrieked, writhing in sensory overload. Webb was already moving. He hit the first one with that electromagnetic pulse device, frying their environmental suit controls. Disabled the second with a nerve strike, that stupid pen appearing in his hand like magic. The third tried to raise a weapon, but Webb used the plasma injector to superheat the air around him, forcing him back, then swept his legs with a kick that should not have generated that much force. 15 seconds. 3 hostiles neutralized. Vex, he shouted. The terminals. Can you shut down the hack? I scrambled forward, my training finally kicking in through the shock. My manipulators flew across the interfaces. Krellian encryption, military grade, but I had studied their systems. Had to. Security chief responsibilities. I need 2 minutes. I called back. You have 90 seconds. Webb was already moving toward the corridor, toward the sounds of reinforcements approaching. What followed was the most terrifying 90 seconds of my life. I worked on the terminals while behind me, Marcus Webb fought an unknown number of Krellians in close quarters combat. I heard shouts. Crashes. The distinctive hiss of his plasma injector. Bones breaking. Something exploding. Someone screaming. And through it all, Webb was talking. Actually talking. Sorry about your friend there, big guy, but you really should not have grabbed at me. Crash. Oh, that looked like it hurt. You okay? No. Yeah, that is fair. Hiss of plasma. Seriously, how many of you are on this ship? This is getting excessive. More crashing. I got through the first encryption layer. Then the second. The third was adaptive, shifting algorithms. Sweat was leaking from my pores, which is deeply unpleasant for my species. Behind me, Webb grunted in pain. I risked a glance. He was bleeding from a cut on his arm, facing down 4 Krellians in the corridor. He still had that pen. Still had the plasma injector, though it was sparking, probably overheating. 1 Krellian rushed him. Webb sidestepped, used the momentum to throw him into the others. They went down in a tangle of limbs and armor. Vex. Any time now would be great. Working on it. I shouted back, manipulating the final encryption sequence. There. Access granted. I shut down their hack. Restored life support control to station mainframe. Sent an emergency signal to council enforcement vessels in the sector. Then, because I was feeling petty, I triggered the ship's internal fire suppression system. Foam erupted from ceiling vents, coating everything in sticky suppressant gel. The Krellians, already off balance from fighting Webb, went down hard. He used the distraction to disable the last few with brutal efficiency. When the foam settled, 8 Krellian operatives were unconscious or incapacitated. Webb stood in the middle of them, covered in foam and blood, breathing hard, holding a pen. Just a pen. Nice work, he said, grinning through the foam. Nice work. Nice work. You just fought 8 armed Krellians with office supplies and improvised tools. 9 actually, he corrected. 1 ran when I melted his weapon. Totally counts. Council enforcement arrived 20 minutes later. They found a ship full of evidence, detained Krellians, and enough hacking equipment to prosecute them for the next 5 cycles. The diplomatic immunity claim evaporated faster than water in a vacuum when presented with evidence of attempted mass murder. Kella was safe. The station was safe. And Marcus Webb was standing there covered in fire suppression foam, acting like this was a normal Tuesday. The council representative, a stern Quillarian named Mex, approached us. "Who authorized this boarding action?" "I did," I said before Webb could answer. "Security emergency. Imminent threat to station integrity." Mex studied me with those unsettling compound eyes. Then looked at Webb. "And you are?" "Marcus Webb. Tourist. Just helping out." "Helping out," Mex repeated flatly. "You neutralized 9 hostiles using what appears to be," he consulted his data pad, a pen, a modified maintenance laser, a homemade electromagnetic device, and aggressive hand-to-hand combat. Webb shrugged. That damned shrug again. "They were threatening my friends." Mex made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Humans. I am adding a notation to your species file. High risk, high reward, absolutely unpredictable." Over the next week, things settled down. The Krellians were prosecuted. Kella received official refugee protection. Pip gave Webb free noodles for life, which seemed to please him more than any official commendation. I called him to my office on his last day at the station. He was finally leaving, heading to some colony world where, knowing him, he would probably accidentally start a revolution or invent a new form of propulsion using kitchen appliances. "Mr. Webb," I said formally. "I wanted to return your property." I had his duffel bag brought up from the vault. All 43 weapons, catalogued and accounted for. He looked at the bag, then at me, and laughed. Actually laughed. "You know what? Keep them. Keep them. These are worth a fortune." "Yeah, but I do not need them anymore. Turns out, you can buy everything you need to protect people right here on the station. Plus, I kind of like the challenge. Makes me creative." He pulled out a pen from his pocket. A new one. Bright blue. "Besides, I have everything I need right here." I stared at that pen. That innocent, harmless writing instrument that I now knew could be a weapon in the right hands. Or wrong hands. Definitely wrong hands. "You are absolutely terrifying," I told him honestly. "Thanks." He said it like I had complimented his haircut. "You are pretty cool yourself, Vex. For an uptight security chief who panics too much." I panicked the appropriate amount for someone who has to deal with humans. He laughed again, shook my hand, which is a human gesture that involves gripping appendages and moving them up and down. Strange but oddly pleasant. "Take care of yourself," he said. "And hey, if you ever need help, just send a message. I will come running." He left the station that afternoon. I watched his transport depart from the observation deck, and I felt something strange. Not relief, which I expected. But something else. I was going to miss him. That realization terrified me more than anything else that had happened. I returned to my office, sat down, and began writing my incident report. How do you explain to council oversight that a single human, stripped of all conventional weapons, had saved an entire station using nothing but creativity, determination, and an alarming knowledge of chemistry and anatomy? You do not. You just write facts and let them draw their own conclusions. 3 weeks later, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a book. Title, Basic Engineering for Creative Problem Solving, Human Edition. And a note, thought you might want to understand how we think. Also, there is a chapter on pens. You are welcome. Marcus. I read that book cover to cover. Then read it again. Then locked it in my personal safe because the information contained within was absolutely, categorically, undeniably dangerous in the wrong hands. Humans do not need weapons. They are weapons. And Marcus Webb. He was proof that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is not plasma rifles or missiles or even antimatter bombs. It is a determined human with a pen and a point to prove. I never saw him again, but I heard stories. Oh, did I hear stories? A colony uprising peacefully resolved by a tourist with excellent negotiation skills. A pirate blockade dismantled by someone using modified mining equipment. A diplomatic crisis averted by a human who turned a banquet hall into a tactical advantage. Every time, the description matched. Casual clothes. Easy smile. And always, a pen in his pocket. The galaxy was changing. Humans were spreading out, making friends, solving problems in ways that made no sense to anyone else. And we were all slowly, reluctantly, learning a vital lesson. Never, ever, underestimate a species that evolved on a death world. Because they will turn anything, literally anything, into a solution. Even if that solution involves weaponizing office supplies. My name is Vex. I was head of security on Station Helix when I learned that lesson the hard way. These days, I run security training programs for the Council. My most popular course? Humans, Understanding the Unpredictable Species. It is always fully booked. Because everyone, eventually, encounters a human. And when you do, you better hope they are on your side. Because if they are against you, well, you better hope they only have a pen. Trust me on this one. I know from experience.